Hello friends, it's Celine with Natural Living Homesteader. Thanks for joining me today. We are going to be doing a quick video. I'm going to try to make this real quick on how to can potatoes because canning potatoes is so simple. With the talk of food shortages and, you know, just stuff that's going on, whether it happens or doesn't happen, who knows? But why not be prepared? Potatoes are really easy to can, and they are something that most of us use as a staple in our home. Potatoes are easily grown if you have the right climate and you have the right growing situation, and you have the right amount of rain, and you have seed potatoes to start with, and you have plenty of ground. It takes a fair amount of ground to grow enough potatoes for a year, even for 6 months for home use. So, you know, if you're going to have taters in your pantry all year long and you don't have a lot of ground, then because you can store them in like a cold storage in your basement, in, you know, a cold room, whatever you've got, and they'll last for months. But we don't all have that. We don't all have the ground that it takes. I homestead on a little less than 1/4 of an acre, and my house takes up half of that. I have a couple of big shade trees that cover the whole front yard, so there's no growing in the front yard. The north end of the house doesn't get enough sun, so I'm really dealing with the southwest and the south side of my house. My backyard is only 8 foot deep, literally 8 foot from my house begins my neighbor's yard. So I have made the best use out of every square foot I can for growing, and I produce a lot of the food that we eat every year. But I don't have enough ground space to grow enough potatoes to make it worth my while. I did plant a few potatoes this year just to play around with it, but it's probably only going to make a handful of meals. So anyway, you can buy russet potatoes. While I think about it, please like this video and subscribe to my channel if you're enjoying this. I'm really trying to grow my channel, and I would appreciate you being part of my community. So anyway, potatoes are still pretty cheap. Now, in all honesty, let me move the camera so you can see. Right. So I bought 2 10-pound bags of russets from Aldi the other day. They were, I believe, $4.98, something like that. About 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago, you could get 10 pounds of russets for $2.98. Then they went to $3.98, then they went to $4.98. Sometimes you can catch them on sale for $3.98, but hey, that's a lot of food for $4.98. Even though they've gone up and I'm not happy about it, it's still a pretty good deal to get potatoes on your shelf for year-round. Alright, so this is what I'm going to do, because my poor old arthritic hands do not, you know what, I'm not claiming that, I'm taking that back, but due to circumstances beyond my control at the moment, gosh, I'm searching for my, there it is, my peeler. Okay. Because I have some issues, here, I really can't just peel. I can't grip like that. I just can't for very long. So what I did was I pulled out my good old potato corer and peeler. Now, this is an Apple Master. I got that from Amazon, and I'll put a link below. It has served me very well for a couple of years now. That's what they look like. There's another piece that goes onto this that I have taken off for using potatoes, so that as you know, do your apple, it cores it and it slices it in rings as well. Well, I don't want that with my potatoes. So I've taken that little piece off. Now, I know that I have seen these, maybe not the same brand, but I have seen these at Rural King. So you should be able to find them at your local your local farm store. But I like this one because it's got the little rubber seal on the bottom. And you just seal it. Whoop, and that didn't work. There we go. And see, it stays, it's not going anywhere. You can also clamp this to the side of your table. And here's what we do. You just shove your tater onto the end of that. Let's see, I didn't start out right. You want to pull this all the way back. Put your potato, and then all you have to do is spin it. And voila. Does take a little muscle, but now I have a potato that I just have to kind of peel the ends on. Again, because of my grip there. And I have actually taken these potato skins, made sure I washed the potatoes good first, taken the potato skins, cut them in reasonable lengths, like 6-8 inches long, whatever, 4 inches, and salted them or seasoned them and throw them in the freeze dryer, and they make nice little potato kind of airy crisps that my grandkids love, but I'm not going to mess with that today. I've got peas going in the freeze dryer, so I don't really have a place for that. So let me show you. I'll do one more. Pull this back. Put that on. And voila. And then all I have to do is, I normally don't peel like this, but I'm having a hard time getting a hold of it today. There, but anyway, perfect. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish peeling these. I'm not going to bore you with all that, but that's how I do it. And then I'll come back when I get them all peeled and show you what's next. Okie doke, I got 10 pounds of russets peeled and soaking in water. As soon as I peel them, I plop them in water so they don't turn colors. They don't start to turn gray on me. And then all I do is I just kind of give them a chop, and I just make chunks. Fairly sizable chunks. The smaller the chunks, the squishier it gets. The potatoes get after they're processed. And then I just throw them back in the water, and when I'm all done with this, I will then give them a good rinse in some fresh water. Whoop. So see, and they're not all totally uniform. I try, but hey, life's not perfect, right? Okay. So I will say it took me, I don't know, 10-12 minutes to peel all those potatoes with the apple peeler. So in my opinion, that's the way to go, but I used to peel them by hand because I didn't have any issues, and it was not a problem. So whichever way you do it, just do it. So as you can see, this is pretty boring. I'm not going to bore you with chopping up the whole bunch, but I just wanted you to see how easy it was. I also want to mention, you know, I have a friend who, there's a lot of things that she doesn't like peeled or canned or freeze-dried or things like that because they don't taste like they did when they're fresh. And you know what, guys? That's just the way it works. You can't have fresh food all the time. I mean, things just aren't always in season, and when they're not in season, usually they're a little pricey. So sometimes you got to do what you got to do. Do potatoes taste exactly like fresh potatoes? No, they don't. They've been processed. The water that they sit in while they are on your shelf, it becomes a little starchy and you kind of have to drain and rinse. But hey, they're great for fried potatoes, for potato salad, for mashed potatoes. Think about what you buy in the store. You purchase, say, a can of green beans in the store. They do not taste like fresh green beans because they've been preserved, they've been processed. And that's just the reality of it. But is it nice to go in your pantry or your storeroom and pull out a can of potatoes at 7 o'clock in the morning and give them a good rinse and drain and throw them in a cast iron skillet and have fried potatoes? Heck yeah, it is. And very, very convenient. So, you know, if you can't get potatoes, you're going to be darn glad to have them, even if they don't taste exactly fresh. Okay, I've got these all cut up. Remember, this is just 10 pounds. I've got another 10 pounds to go, but right now, I'm using my electric canners, and they only take 8 quarts per canner. I have 2 of them, and so there's no point in getting ahead of myself. I may or may not get to the other 10 pounds today. So anyway, all you have to do is cut them up, wash them, just rinse them 2 or 3 times really well, just to get the excess starch off. And then we're just going to fill up our jars. And I'm using quarts. You can use pints. You can do whatever you want to do here. Okay, so that's pretty good. I'm up to the 1-inch headroom. Now this is water. I love this old, this old plastic bowl with the spout. It's got a perfect spout for canning. Doesn't go all over the place. This old bowl, my mother got when I was probably, I was a kid, and oops, just a little too much. Came from the Hewitt and Ware grain elevator when I was a kid. That thing's been gone for decades. Okay, what I'm going to do, rather than use my bubbler, actually I'm going to use a chopstick and just kind of work them around. And then I'm on a towel here. I'm just going to kind of bounce them lightly, and any bubbles, air bubbles that are in there should drift up. So I've got that. Oops, and I always wipe off my jars with vinegar, even though there's nothing greasy like meat or anything like that in there. I'm going to do it anyway. And I'm going to wipe the rim. I'm going to take a lid and a ring. Now when I wash these, by the way, I hand wash these jars. Sometimes I wash them in the dishwasher, just depends. I didn't have enough for a full load, so I didn't do it. I just hand washed them real quick. You always want to check to make sure that there's no chips or no lumps or anything. I've had once or twice a big old knot of glass, nothing sharp or anything, but it would have been enough to stop a seal. And then you want to look at your can lids, make sure there's no gashes or anything in them where this paint is off or whatever this coating is, because they can rust without that. And you want to make sure that this seal goes all the way around, so there's nothing to prevent it from sealing. Then I'm not gonna put this on tight like that. That's not how you do it. You just finger tight. And when you pressure can, the reason you don't put them on tight is because it builds up so much pressure in here that any air has to be able to come out from underneath that lid before it sucks down and seals. So it has to pressure the air out so that it can suck it back down. So you have to have it finger tight. You want it tight enough that it's not jiggly or loose in any way, but you don't want to wring it tight. Now I tighten my jars much tighter than this, my lids, whenever I'm doing water bath canning, because it's a different method. It's not a pressure canning method. It's a boiling, it's a hot, it's by heat. And so you want your lid screwed down a little bit tighter then. But for pressure canning, that's what we're doing. Let's do one more. And I am cold raw packing this, so I'm just putting in my raw potatoes. And the reason I do that is because I don't want them squishy. So I put in my raw potatoes and my water. The potatoes are room temperature, the water's room temperature, the jars are room temperature. If I were going to hot pack this, the water would be boiling. The potatoes would have had to have been heated up and partially cooked, at least blanched to where they were hot, and the jars would need to be hot. Otherwise, you're going to get broken jars when you put them in the canner. So everything needs to be the same temperature. And I do a lot of raw packing, cold packing. I don't want my food squishy mushy whenever it's done, and if it's cooked first and then goes in the canner for half an hour, whatever, depends on what you're canning, 90 minutes. I don't want it to come out mush. So I've checked my jar lid. I used the vinegar. I looked at my ring. I do all this when I wash them. And finger tight. That's simple. Okay, I'm going to get these finished, and then I will show you what we do when it's time to put them in the canner. Okay, so I am ready to rock and roll with this. This is my Nesco. Let's see if I can turn it around so you can see. Maybe not. From the way the camera is situated. Maybe not. My Nesco electric canner. I absolutely love these things. I have 2 of them. I worked one so hard for a few years that I killed it, and I replaced it so that I always have 2. Now, I have a few inches of water on the bottom and a rack. Always need a rack. When you're pressure canning, you just need 2-3 inches of water on the bottom, and this will hold 4 quarts. So here are my jars. By the way, I forgot to do this on the jars that you saw me do. I went back, opened them up, and put a teaspoon of canning salt in there. You do not have to do that. You don't have to salt anything. I just do. I like the flavor. So for quarts, it is a teaspoon, and for pints, it's a half a teaspoon of salt. So I am going to get my 4 pints in there, my 4 quarts in there, 40 minutes. I couldn't remember whether it was 25 or 40. And if they were pints, it would be 35 minutes. So there we go. We've got the water in, we've got the rack. You have to have a rack because the heat is just too much on the bottom. It'll crack your jars. Then I'm going to close this up. I'm going to lock it in place. I'm going to put it on exhaust so that as it builds, it can also escape and do its thing. This thing is so automatic that the only thing I have to do, let's see if I can set you down. I'm wobbling you all over the place here. There. All I have to do is turn this on high and set it for 40 minutes. And start. Now, this little thing will go round and round and round until it builds up the right pressure. It'll beep at me. Then I will flip this over to airtight when it beeps. This little thing on top, the pressure gauge. So it'll be able to tell. It's self-regulated when there's enough pressure. So then I'll flip this over to airtight, and because it'll beep at me, I'll know it's time to do that. I'll flip it over to airtight. That's all I have to do to it. It will continue to count down until it's got the right amount of pressure, and then it will begin, and it'll start its countdown from 40 minutes on down. and it will beep at me when it's done. At that point, I do nothing for an hour. I let the pressure go down. This lid will not even open until the pressure is gone. It doesn't matter what I do. Like, I can do it now because there's no pressure, but I can't unlock this lid as long as there's pressure in it. So it takes an hour for the pressure to come down, and then I just open the lid for a couple minutes and take them out. So I'll show you that when we get to that point. But this is all I have to do other than flip that when it beeps at me in a few minutes, and that's it. I love my Nesco canners, love them. I have literally done thousands of jars, literally thousands of jars over the last few years with these two little canners. It takes 4 quarts or 5 pints. So they're small batch canners, which is why I have 2. But yeah, so anyway. Also, I wanted to let you know that 10 pounds of potatoes, I'm a mess here. I've been outside leaning over the fence, yakking at my neighbor. Yeah, we do that here in small towns. And so I'm kind of like, anyway. I ended up getting 7 1/4 quarts out of those 10 pounds. So I'm gonna go ahead and do the other 10 pounds today, and that will give me 4 full canner loads, meaning 2 full runs, because I'm gonna have 2 going at one time. I could get more on a stovetop canner, but it's such a pain in the butt to me to have to stand over that gauge and make sure that the pressure stays where it's supposed to stay. I got things to do. I don't want to do that. I don't have the patience for that. And now, don't get me wrong. If I didn't have these electric canners, I'd be doing it because that's just, you know. I mean, if push came to shove and we didn't have electric canners anymore and stovetop or campfire was the way to go, I'd be happy to use my regular canner. But until then, set it, forget it, walk away, come back a couple hours later, pop the lid, throw in another batch, and walk away again. It's so easy. Also, I keep forgetting to say this after I turn the camera off. I think, oh, I keep forgetting to say that. So I came back on to tell you, I did wash these jars, but I did not sanitize them. I didn't you know, put them in boiling water and, you know, do all of that, because that is no longer a USDA requirement or a requirement, whatever. I mean, rule. You know, the government's got to stick their nose in everything. They got to make rules for kitchen canning. I am not a terrible rebel canner, but I do bend the rules sometimes. But this is not a rule. I just want to make sure you know. You no longer have to sanitize your jars or your lids when you're canning, as long as you are processing them for at least 10 minutes, whether it's water bath canning or pressure canning. As long as it's a minimum of 10 minutes, it kills everything and you're no longer required. And that is a USDA thing. They have said that. You also don't have to soak your lids. You know, boil your lids in hot water to make them pliable. You don't have to do that anymore either. And that's it. That's on the Ball website. So make life a little bit easier on yourself. And as long as they're nice and clean, you don't have to go through the rest of that, as long as you're processing for at least 10 minutes. Okay, so here we go. In case you notice, I am in a different outfit, different apron, the whole bit. I gave little Oreo here, got a bath, and I was absolutely soaked, so I had to change. But anyway, hi, this is Oreo. Say hello, Oreo. Isn't he cute? He's about 11, 12 weeks old right now. Okay. Okie doke. So everything is done. Well, not everything. My first canner loads, my first 2 canner loads are finished. And remember, I told you I could get 4 in each, so I've got 8 quarts done right now. And here they are. See, I'm still bubbling away. And I was able, out of that 20 pounds of russet potatoes, I was able to get 16, I take that back. Actually, I was able to get 14 quarts and about a pint. And I wanted to fill these up again, which would have been 8 more, for a total of 16. And so what I did was I went ahead and used a few potatoes that I had in the bin. I had some Yukon Gold potatoes. So I did about 4 of those, which gave me another half pint to make a quart and an additional quart, totaling 16 quarts total for today. So that is how you can potatoes.